Christina, you've been with this for a long, long time. So tell me about your starting point. What interested you about it? Where did it begin?
Well, I just happened to read Teresa's book, and I loved it. And I couldn't believe that I had such misconceptions about Zelda Fitzgerald. And so I thought, oh, well, someone's going to be making a movie of this. So I just had my manager call about, like, who had the rights so that I could say I wanted to come and audition whenever. And then the rights were available. So, and I think that for me, what I really wanted was this idea of giving this woman who lives in myth, you know, either adored or reviled, make her human, give her back her humanity.
So I wonder what was the starting point for the two of you in terms of trying to figure out not just who these people were, but how you would play them.
Well, I mean, I did tons and tons of research about Zelda. I read 2 biographies. I read all of her writing that I could get my hands on. I read all of his writing. I read about that period of time in America. You know, I pretty much covered all my bases because it is very intimidating to play somebody who is kind of the stuff of legend, and you don't want to disappoint anyone or do anything or embarrass yourself. I mean, you know.
I think you can go crazy doing so much research because there's so much stuff written about them. And then not only that, but I mean, we've got obviously scripts to read, and there's an element of a storyline that Z is telling that, as you said, it's part of, or it's a person's view on what happened. So I think there's got to be a limit, or at least there was for me. There's a limit to doing research and then trying to work out how that relates to the actual work that you're doing. Because really, you can go a little bit, in my opinion, I would have gone overboard trying to nut everything out. That's not going to happen.
Do you have to consciously avoid the kind of the icon status of them to a degree?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it's very much about playing a woman, about it being very real and human and heartfelt, and you know, it's sort of like pulling back the curtain a little bit. So the celebrity aspect of it and the iconic kind of aspect of it was something I didn't even think of at all, because except for the way that celebrity affected her behavior and how she felt about herself.
Well, how did you see that? I'm really curious. How did you see the way that it affected her, and how did you kind of?
Well, for her, coming to New York and having that amount of fame, I think both of them having that amount of fame at once, I don't think they ever recovered from it. You know, after that, what if that's what at 18 your introduction to the world is? How do you ever top that ever again? So I think they were chasing that. I think that has a lot to do with the alcoholism and this need. You see, they moved all over the world and they were constantly searching for it. And I think what they were really searching for was reliving that initial rush again. And so that's why it was so important with the first season that you really felt that rush of fame.
You know, if you're going to pinpoint any era as being sort of definitive of fashion, it's the 20s. Right. So where does the research begin for you?
So, I mean, I'll fill in a little bit of the historical thing. You know, I mean, I think part of the interesting thing about playing historical figures and people who are known is that there is a wealth of information about the people. So not only is there were writings and that sort of stuff, there are also photographs and newspaper clippings and all that sort of stuff, in addition to all just the general magazines and, you know, period stuff. So all of that gets filled in when you're playing historical people, but then you have to take all of that, funnel it through the character, and have, you know, we're left, you know, with these two wonderful actors, you know, launching off to create then these new people who are Zelda and F. Scott and our versions of them, and how that gets translated into that. The interesting part about this show, for me anyway, is that it is a really ugly period until you actually get to know it. and then it's a really spectacularly beautiful period because it's actually right before what we imagine is the most beautiful period in fashion, which is the later 20s. You know, from 1917 to 1923 is a transition period because everything in America is actually starting. It's post-war, and the deterioration of all the stuff that happened in World War I into, you know, how the car became very important and transportation became very important, and so all of that had effects on the length of the skirts and how people moved and all that sort of stuff. And all the clothes have like 130 different snaps and hooks and that sort of stuff. So it takes like between the corset and the, you know, the slip and the hose and the, you know, everything, it just would take everyone such a long period of time.
For that, we had the first episode that we shot together, we had a sex scene. And the director was like, it'd be great to see you like undressing. I was like, well, it's a 28-minute long show.
Yes.
So I don't know that we have time. We'll have nothing else in the show.